Welcome to another edition of Raising the Bar. I'm your host, Alan Pickert. Today's show is sponsored by Terrell Hogan Law, a prestigious boutique all-purpose litigation firm that operates in Texas, Georgia, and Florida, located in downtown Jacksonville, Florida. They've been in existence for over 50 years. And today we have Megan Sowell of Terrell Hogan Law. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
So Megan, you have an interesting background that most people don't have in the practice of law in that, well, let's start it this way. Tell us where you went to college.
Sure. I went to the Citadel. It is a military college in South Carolina. So did 4 years there.
Okay. So I know very well about the Citadel. I'm from a military family. I don't know if many people do, but between plebe year, I don't know how you get through it, but with all that said, how did you jump from the Citadel to decide to go into law?
Sure. So I was a collegiate athlete. Being a female athlete at a school where I graduated with 7% female in my class, I knew that there were some issues that needed to be addressed that I firsthand saw and some of my classmates saw as well. And after looking at the options of where to go with my degree and everything, I decided the best way I could help people is going into law. And what that looked like was to be determined, but that's how I got to law school from there.
And then from law school, what did you do next?
So I was a prosecutor here in Jacksonville for 3 years before coming over to Terrell Hogan.
And what does that mean as a prosecutor? What kind of cases are you doing?
So by the time I was done at the state, I was mostly dealing with gun crimes, so crimes involving firearms and felons that have firearms, and also people who have been victims of firearm crimes. And some of those involved battery, where they're hit with the gun, and then other ones involved up to homicides.
So you were basically looking for justice for victims.
Yes.
And then you kind of parlay that, and then you go to Terrell Hogan Law.
Yes.
And you go into their medical malpractice department.
I am, yes.
So what made you choose Terrell Hogan Law?
Well, Terrell Hogan, I'm from Jacksonville. I'm a Jacksonville native, born and raised. It has always had a certain status at that law firm. And I knew that when I left the state attorney's office, I wanted to be able to do something that could help people. And I wanted to do it incredibly well. And I knew that if I went to Terrell Hogan, I would have the opportunity to do both of those things. You're mentored by fantastic attorneys there. They have a, expectation of excellence. And the medical malpractice group was the one that I thought I would be able to best transition my skills that I got at the state into civil work.
Terrell Hogan Law is considered one of the premier all-purpose litigation firms in the state. What types of litigation can people, if they need help, if they call your law firm, what can they do? What can they expect? What kind of cases does your law firm handle?
Sure. So the law firm handles a variety of cases. I'm specifically within the medical malpractice group. So if you are a victim of medical negligence and you call our firm, you will be speaking to a member of our team. What the cases we primarily deal with are catastrophic injury and death cases. So those focus mostly around stroke, cardiovascular issues, and then spinal infection cases. Those are the primary.
Those are actually kind of your specialty niche, correct?
Yes.
Because I know that you do other types of med mal cases, but I also know you and others have spoken nationally at conferences on those specific niches of medical malpractice, correct?
Yes. So the members of our group are also a member of the stroke litigation group in American Association of Justice. So every year, twice a year, our group will meet, and those are lawyers who specifically handle stroke cases.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, one of the things, I know you don't want to toot your own horn, but I know personally that you just was involved in successfully representing a client in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. So congratulations. I know that just got finished. So
Thank you.
I know that has to be something that felt nice for the client, but also take a little pressure off of you.
A little bit.
What do you do to decompress, take the pressure off of everything you do? Because when you're doing medical malpractice cases like yourself, a lot of these people are permanently injured for life, maimed, maybe even deceased, depending on what the situation is. What do you do to say, hey, I've been working 6 days a week, 24/7, 365 type of thing. What do I do to decompress and kind of back off a little bit?
Sure. So I think I do it the same way I did at the state attorney's office. I have the misfortune in my job of meeting people on the worst day of their life. And if you're not careful, that can really weigh on you. And so one thing I think is really important is having a good networking group. And what I mean by that is I have a really close group of friends that I can call, some of which are attorneys, some of which aren't. And I'm able to just talk to them like a normal person and forget about my job and forget about what I deal with. And also I'm really close to my family. So I find relying on others, I'm a very social person, that helps me decompress and not think about those things. In addition to that, I really try and make time for physical fitness, making sure that you're, even if it's just like a walk on the weekend or something, being active, being able to be out in the environment, whether that's at the beach or at the pool or just taking a walk. I think that's really important, being out. And, this has a negative connotation, but kind of touch grass is a really important thing that I deal with. So get out of the office, get out of my house. That's what I do.
Very good. So one of the things too, I think people need to understand, the viewers out there, is like if you do have a medical malpractice case, one of the great things about your law firm that I know personally is you may contact a different law firm and you talk to a legal assistant or the receptionist and you never talk to the lawyer. At your firm, if someone called with a medical malpractice case, they're talking to the lawyers, correct?
Yes.
And so with that said, can you kind of give the jury, I know every case is different, but medical malpractice cases are more complex and convoluted. So there's not something that's going to be done overnight, correct?
Right. So it's not as easy as someone having a legal question of, was I the victim of medical negligence? Well, we're going to have to look at the records. So it's having that initial conversation with someone. Everybody has cell phones. There's videos of everybody. That kind of evidence is what people normally think. For medical malpractice cases, we have the records. That's our evidence. And so it's really important before we're able to tell somebody if they have a case that we're going to pursue or not. We need to get our hands in those, see what happened, see if there was anything that could have been done in some cases, and then have an honest conversation with either the victim of medical negligence themselves or the surviving family. And so until we're able to really deep dive into that and take a look at it, we're unable to give someone an answer. But what that means is that every single case, an attorney is looking at your case because we're the ones who are going through the file. So
it'd be beneficial, they don't have to do it, but it'd be beneficial if someone called you and said, either I have been a victim of medical malpractice or a family member or a loved one or a neighbor, what have you, if they had the medical records that they could give to you. So not only could they tell you what happened, but then you could go ahead and look at them, because there is a lag time to order medical records, correct?
Absolutely. And so if you already have the medical records, that streamlines the process a little bit. If you don't, we're able to help you, give you advice on here's how you do that. Medical negligence is unfortunately not going away anytime soon, but we're in a position to help people get those records, and even if we don't take their case, get an answer of here's why, give them more information so that if they want to go home and explain it to someone, they're able to do that.
And one of the things I think people have this misconception about with medical malpractice is that, and no offense to the medical community out there, but that the doctors are kind of like God, that they never make mistakes. And it's just the opposite. They make a lot of mistakes because they have lots of cases going on. There's a lot of complexities to it, whatever. But just because they mess up doesn't mean that the client, who is now seriously injured or maybe even dead, shouldn't be compensated, either that person or their family, correct?
Exactly. And I've always kind of viewed it in this way. There are some professions, your mistakes, your errors, your negligence means more. Pilots, the military, doctors fall into that category. This isn't someone who handed you your bag at Chick-fil-A and they forgot the extra Chick-fil-A sauce that you asked for. These are errors, and this is negligence that drastically can impact someone's life. And people need to be held accountable of that. And I think any good system, there's a check and there's a balance. And that's how I view my job.
That's excellent. Excellent. Like I said, your firm's medical malpractice department has a stellar reputation throughout the Southeast, so that's great. If somebody's sitting at home and watching this and they say, I've got a medical malpractice question, but I don't want to pay any money, does it cost anything to call you and ask their questions and ask you to review their case?
No, not at all. For us to review the case, it costs the potential client no money.
Okay. And in fact, am I correct to say the only time is if you're successful with the client, and then if you are, it's called a contingency fee, and you actually take a percentage of the case, correct?
That's correct.
So otherwise, you could work 2 years on the case, spend all the costs, and if you aren't successful, the client isn't out of any money, correct?
That's correct.
So there's really no reason not to call and at least inquire if they think that they have a potential medical malpractice issue, right?
Absolutely. And if it's not a medical malpractice issue and it's determined that it's something that we can't handle, at least you have that information and you have those answers.
How does the person contact you if they want to talk to you, Megan Sowell, and say, I'm impressed with her. She's got the military background. She's a state attorney. She's always been looking for justice, and now she's crushing it, as I know in the recent 7-figure case that you just resolved for a med mal case. How does someone go about contacting you?
Sure. So you can just call our law firm's main line, and
what is that number?
That's 904-632-2424.
Okay. Or they could Google you.
They can Google me. You can Google the firm. Once you get on the firm's website, there's a drop down of the attorneys. You'd find me, and that's how you can contact me. But really, if you reach out through Terrell Hogan, or if you Google my name, Megan Sowell, that's how you can get in contact with me. And so once you're speaking to someone at Terrell Hogan, they'll know who you're trying to get to.
Well, like I said, it's really important because I don't think people understand. There are a lot of lawyers out there, but there are not a lot of lawyers who have the specialty of medical malpractice.
Correct.
And it's a very complex situation that usually takes a lot of money to front the costs on behalf of the client to pursue it. So I greatly appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So that is another edition of Raising the Bar. Hope you have a good day. Take care.